Hey guys, tonight we tumble back softly, slowly into a myth older than logic, stitched together from songs, sighs, and a handful of very questionable decisions. You're in a forest grove. It's not exactly peaceful. Cicadas are screaming from the treetops like unpaid interns. The air smells like overripe figs. And somewhere to your left, a satyr is playing the pan flute a little too confidently. You've been invited to a wedding. Orpheus, the groom, is tuning his lyre. He's already played 6 preludes and 2 accidental laments, which is kind of on brand. Considering he's the original, I have a guitar and feelings type. Eurydice, the bride, looks radiant, or as radiant as one can look when surrounded by drunken centaurs arguing about who invented poetry. Still, it's beautiful. Wildflowers carpet the ground. A breeze flicks through the poplars like a secret. Everyone from dryads to minor deities has shown up, mostly because Orpheus is famous, and partially because there's free wine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and don't forget to drop your location and what time it is where you are. It's always fun seeing who else is falling asleep in the middle of a myth about love, death, and the world's worst timing. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ceremony starts without a priest. Orpheus's voice is the ritual. He sings vows so soft, even the grass leans in to listen. You're not crying. It's just that a sprite nearby kicked up some pollen. Totally unrelated. Now, a fun historical fact. Ancient Greek weddings didn't involve white dresses, ring bearers, or anyone shouting, "You may now kiss the bride." Instead, they often featured 3 stages: the pre-wedding feast, the formal procession, and finally, the moment where the bride was led into the groom's house, often by torchlight. In this version, though, we're skipping straight to the feast. Everyone's half-buzzed on diluted wine and trying not to step on any invisible deities. You awkwardly sidestep a nymph who's offering you roasted chestnuts from a flaming shell. Orpheus plays on, music looping like a trance. Historians still argue whether his lyre was a standard 7-string model or an early prototype of a 10-string. Either way, his melodies supposedly tamed rivers, made lions nap, and convinced rocks to cry, so probably not your average harp. Eurydice laughs at something a satyr mumbles and walks into the grove, away from the noise. Just for a second, you follow. She's barefoot, brushing her fingers across goldenrod and heather. In this quiet space, it feels like the myth might change. Like maybe, just maybe, you're in a version where nothing tragic happens. But of course not, because this is Greek mythology, and no one survives their wedding day with their soul intact. Eurydice pauses. The ground beneath her stirs. She doesn't see the snake. You do, but it's too late. A flash of movement, a flicker of green, and suddenly silence. There's no scream, just the thud of her collapsing, as if gravity suddenly cared too much. You run toward her. Orpheus's music continues in the distance, oblivious. Her hand twitches once, then stills. You kneel. The snake has vanished, probably off to ruin some other love story. But the bite is there. Tiny, almost dainty, on her ankle, just above where the olive leaf anklet clings uselessly to her skin. Some versions say she tripped while fleeing from an overly amorous shepherd. Others say the earth was jealous. Fringe theories suggest this was all a divine setup, that the gods were annoyed by Orpheus's smug melodies and decided to throw some venom into the romance. You don't know, but you do know Orpheus is coming, now running, stumbling. Lyre forgotten somewhere in the grass. He sees her body, stops, and the music dies. Not just metaphorically, birds fall silent. The trees hush like a scolded choir. Even the satyrs in the distance drop their jugs and forget how to misbehave. Grief in Greek myth isn't a private affair. It radiates, cracks the world like thunder. And as Orpheus lifts Eurydice into his arms, something inside him comes unstrung. You touch his shoulder, but he doesn't react. He just stands there, swaying slightly, as if deciding whether to cry, scream, or collapse. Spoiler, he chooses none of the above. Instead, he sings, but this song is different. This one doesn't charm, it doesn't soothe, it tears. If grief had chords, they'd sound like this scraped raw, low, like thunder trying to hum. And that, dear listener, is where your story really begins, because when mortals die, they stay dead. Except when Orpheus decides otherwise. You wake the next day under a tree with bark that looks suspiciously like it's judging you. Orpheus hasn't moved. He's been sitting by Eurydice's grave, if you can call a pile of pebbles and tear-soaked olive leaves a grave, since dusk. His lyre lies beside him, strings slack. Like it too is mourning. The wedding guests are long gone. Even the nymphs, usually the last to leave a party, slinked off when Orpheus stopped speaking. You stretch your legs and consider offering him a fig. But honestly, fig-based comfort doesn't seem up to the task. Finally, he stands, stiffly, the way someone stands when they've decided something either heroic or deeply unwise. You already know it's going to be the second one. He looks at you. I'm going to get her back. Sure, why not? The underworld can't be that hard to find, right? You trail behind him through thickets and vineyards, past goats that bleat disapprovingly as if to say, even we know that's a bad idea. Eventually, the landscape gets moodier. The trees are darker. The rocks look philosophical. That's when you realize you're heading toward Delphi. Why? Because if you're going to defy the natural order of life and death, it helps to check in with someone who's spent their whole career in a cave inhaling sacred fumes and talking in riddles. The Oracle. Historians believe the Oracle at Delphi was actually a series of women called Pythia, who sat atop a crack in the earth from which ethylene gas leaked, which means yes, your mystical guidance might be coming from someone extremely high on ancient geology. You arrive at the temple and, surprise, the place reeks of laurel and burnt honey. Inside, the oracle is already mid-mumble. Her eyes are rolled back. Her robes flutter like they're caught in a wind that doesn't exist. You both kneel awkwardly. I seek the road to the underworld, Orpheus says. The oracle giggles. Of course you do. You hate when prophets are smug. Do you have something for me? She asks, voice echoing too many times for such a small room. Orpheus offers a song, just a snippet, like a trailer for a tragic movie you already know ends badly. The oracle hums along and seems satisfied. You'll need more than music, she whispers. You'll need to walk through death without dying, to pass the ferryman, to face the dog, to convince the dead to give up one of their own. Easy. Also, you'll need a cloak soaked in moonlight, she adds, and maybe a pomegranate, just in case. You're not sure if she's being literal or metaphoric or just craving fruit. The oracle suddenly goes rigid, then slumps like a dropped marionette. That's it? That's your guidance. No map, no ticket, just vague poetry and suspicious wardrobe instructions. Outside, Orpheus looks more determined than ever. You, on the other hand, begin to mentally draft your will. You help him gather supplies. Lyre strings made from silver-threaded goat gut charming, a dark cloak that smells like midnight alarming, and a coin for the ferryman. Always bring a coin. That's a real historical thing. Greeks often buried their dead with a coin in the mouth, called an obol, to pay Charon for passage. As the sun sets again, you feel it. The shift, air thickening, birdsong tapering into eerie quiet. You're getting close, and so is he. Orpheus doesn't hum, doesn't strum. He walks in silence, carrying grief like a second skin. That night, he doesn't sleep, just stares up at the stars and wonders, out loud, if they've ever wept. You don't answer, mostly because one of them blinks at you in what might be Morse code. And frankly, you're not ready for that level of existential weirdness. The next morning, you descend into a valley that seems to inhale rather than echo. This is it. The path to the underworld isn't a cave, or a tunnel, or a secret trapdoor in a funeral home. It's a crack, a long, thin scar on the land, breathing cool mist and bad decisions. You stand at the edge. Orpheus steps forward. No farewell, no pep talk, just one glance back at you. The kind of look that says, if I don't come back, make sure no one remixes my music. Then he vanishes into the dark. You, of course, follow, because that's what you do in myths. You follow love. Even when it's about to get monumentally complicated, the earth seals behind you with a soft hiss. Welcome to the land of the dead. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. The underworld isn't fire and brimstone. It's not even particularly warm. It's damp, like an abandoned wine cellar that's been colonized by ghosts with no sense of personal space. The walls breathe. Or at least, they seem to. You try not to think too hard about that. Orpheus walks ahead, silent, the edge of his cloak trailing across black stone. It makes no sound. Even your footsteps feel muffled, as if the place is politely requesting you keep it down. The deeper you go, the more the air tastes like forgotten names and half-buried regrets. That's when he does it. He plays. It's not a song, not really. More like a few careful notes, plucked like apologies from the strings of his lyre. The sound doesn't echo. It sinks, soaks into the walls, and the walls resonatos, compos, armies, responding. Tiny motes of blue light rise up from the floor. Souls, whispering, flickering souls. Some just drift past. Some pause, curious. One old woman stares directly into your face and says something in a language no one's spoken in 3,000 years. You nod politely anyway. Music. In myth and in history, has always been more than entertainment. The ancient Greeks believed music could mirror the cosmos, heal illness, even tame chaos. Orpheus is proving that now. His grief has become a spell, and it's opening doors you can't see. You pass a cavern filled with sleeping spirits stacked like books in a forgotten library. You don't ask questions. You barely breathe. Orpheus continues to play soft, low, aching. You wonder how many songs exist that were only ever meant for the dead. Suddenly, something big shifts in the gloom ahead. A groan, a creak, like a gate being dragged open by something ancient and reluctant. You reach the edge of a wide black river. This, you realize, must be the river Styx. Fun side note. In Greek tradition, the Styx wasn't just a river, it was an oath. Gods swore by it, and breaking that oath had cosmic consequences. The river itself was said to be made of hatred. Charming, really. A flatboat emerges from the fog, and there he is, Charon, the ferryman. He's not skeletal. That would be too easy. No, Charon is worse. He looks like a man who's forgotten how to smile. His skin has the texture of old bark, and his eyes are two tired coals trying to go out. He smells faintly of mildew and bad dreams. You try to greet him. He ignores you. Orpheus steps forward and silently holds out the obol, the burial coin. Charon accepts it without comment, as if he's just tired of seeing people make bad decisions. He gestures. You board. The boat drifts off without a sound. The oar never touches the water. You feel like you're being pulled across the surface by invisible regrets. Orpheus doesn't play. Now, he just stares ahead. Focused. Heavy. You sit beside him and try not to make eye contact with the glowing shapes trailing the boat like lost memories. Halfway across, Charon speaks. You shouldn't be here. It's not a threat. It's not even cruel. It's just tired. Orpheus replies, softly, I'm here for her. Charon nods, as if he's heard that before. Maybe last week, maybe last century. Then you'll have to pass Cerberus, he mutters, and the judges, and hope the queen is in a merciful mood. You remember reading once that Charon's fee was meant not just for passage, but as an apology for bothering him. The boat bumps softly against the opposite shore. You step onto land that looks like it's been scraped raw by centuries of footsteps. The wind here doesn't blow, it exhales gently. Sadly, Charon says nothing as he fades back into the mist. Orpheus begins to tune his lyre. You follow. In the distance, a growl rolls out like thunder wrapped in chains. Cerberus has noticed you. Cerberus. The name alone usually clears a room of ambition, or at least makes someone rethink their weekend plans. You round a jagged corner, and there he is, 3 heads, 1 body, and a personality somewhere between overworked mall cop and bouncer with abandonment issues. Each head glares in a slightly different direction, but all 3 have locked on you now. The middle one snarls, the left one sneezes, the right one whimpers. You freeze. So does Orpheus. You've never felt more like a misplaced snack in your life. Cerberus, guardian of the underworld, is no mythic exaggeration. Ancient sources describe him as monstrous but loyal, terrifying yet oddly majestic. One Roman writer insisted he had snakes for a mane. Another swore he drooled poison. One fringe theory even claims he was once a normal puppy who just took a very wrong career turn after licking a cursed stick. You don't care about theories right now. You just care about not becoming an appetizer. Orpheus lifts his lyre and plays. No dramatic intro, no fanfare. Just soft, measured chords like lullabies hummed in the ruins of a war. Cerberus growls. Then, The left head tilts, the right one yawns, and the middle one, eyes narrowing slowly, lowers itself to the ground. You're not breathing. You don't even realize your fists are clenched until Orpheus glances sideways and whispers, "Don't move too quickly." Cerberus flops down. All three heads begin to drowse. One lets out a long, wet snore that smells like old meat in the afterlife. You tiptoe past, holding your breath so tightly you're afraid your lungs will file a complaint. Orpheus doesn't look back. He just plays and plays until even the echoes are asleep. Once you're a safe distance away, you let out a noise that's part gasp, part laugh, part nervous existential breakdown. That actually worked. You whisper, Orpheus nods. Music makes beasts remember their dreams, which is probably the most poetic and slightly unhelpful thing you've ever heard. You keep moving. The landscape shifts again. The air is heavier now, sadder. You're walking through what feels like a courtroom built from dust and silence. Three shadows sit at a crumbling bench ahead. The judges of the dead. Rhadamanthus, Minos, and Aeacus. Each one stares at you like you've walked into their ancient group chat and started typing LOL in lowercase. You stand still. Orpheus keeps playing, but his music dims to a respectful murmur. The judges don't speak. They don't need to. One by one, they rise. Minos approaches. He's taller than you expect. His skin looks like old paper left in the sun. And his eyes, well, there's no polite way to say he sees your sins like they're a to-do list. Rhadamanthus circles you, muttering in a language that might be ancient Greek or just really annoyed humming. Aeacus finally breaks the silence. You live. It's not a question. I seek the queen. Orpheus says, you seek what should not be returned. Minos replies, there is no passage back through grief, says Rhadamanthus, yet he sings. Aeacus adds, folding his arms. The judges confer briefly, with many side eyes and head tilts. You think one of them might be texting Hades. Finally, they step aside. You may pass, Minos says, but only because we're curious how badly this will end. That's fair. You continue. The halls begin to shimmer now. No longer the cold stone of the dead, but a kind of obsidian elegance. You're getting closer to the throne room. You pass what can only be described as an eternal reception area, where souls wait like it's a DMV with ambient weeping. Then you hear her voice, soft, stern, familiar, somehow Persephone. And behind it, deeper and slower, Hades. You enter the throne room, which is far less intimidating than you'd expect. No flaming skulls, no giant scythes, just two thrones made of black marble and faint moonlight, with a pomegranate bowl casually placed between them. Persephone looks tired. Hades looks bored. Orpheus steps forward and begins to sing. This isn't for guards or judges or dogs anymore. This is for gods. And still, he doesn't flinch. His fingers move like they're coaxing warmth from frost. His voice cracks once but beautifully. You feel something shift. The air gets warmer. Hades leans forward. Not much, but enough. Persephone's lip trembles. Orpheus sings on. A song not about death, but what happens after. About grief curling up at the foot of your bed like a loyal animal. About how love doesn't leave. It lingers, like a scent in old clothes. The pomegranate bowl between the thrones tips slightly. You hold your breath. Persephone raises her hand. The song ends. Silence returns. And then Hades speaks. She may return, he says slowly, on one condition. Ah, yes, the condition. Because nothing in Greek myth is ever just sure. Go ahead. Have your wife back. Want a snack for the road? No. This is where things begin to fray. Hades' voice rolls through the room like distant thunder over marble. She may follow you out, he says, eyes fixed on Orpheus. But you must not look back. Not until you both reach the upper world. Not once. You blink. That's it. No flaming trials, no riddles, no escape room, logic puzzle involving a cursed pomegranate. Orpheus says nothing. He simply nods. But you feel it in your gut. This is a trap. A polite, well-dressed trap with great acoustics. Persephone watches quietly. Her fingers tap once against the stone throne. You can't tell if she's warning Orpheus or mourning already. Maybe both. Why that condition? You whisper as you follow him out. Historians still argue whether this rule was psychological, a test of trust, symbolic death cannot be witnessed, or just poetic structure for tragic storytelling. Fringe theory. It was Persephone's idea, a final test to see if Orpheus trusted Eurydice enough to believe she was still behind him. Back through the underworld you go. The music is gone now. Orpheus doesn't sing. He doesn't speak. He doesn't even breathe too loudly. Just walks. And behind him, footsteps. You hear them. Soft, real. One after the other. Eurydice. She's there, but you can't see her. Neither can Orpheus. That's the deal. And it's a long, long walk. Back through the eternal waiting room, where bored souls glance up from their paperwork of regrets. Back past the judges, who give no comment. Just 3 synchronized eyebrow raises. Cerberus is still asleep, 2 heads snoring, one murmuring something about squirrels. Then the Styx. Charon's boat appears again, and this time, it shudders a little as Eurydice boards silent, invisible, but definitely present. Orpheus gets on last. Charon rows. No one speaks. You try to memorize this moment, a man trying to unbreak the world by walking forward and trusting that love is following behind. As you cross the river, you wonder what Eurydice sees. The underworld retreating. Orpheus is back, her own fingers dissolving into mist with every step. She doesn't speak either. Maybe she can't. Greek myths often ignore her voice. She's a shadow in Orpheus's story. But tonight, you choose to believe she's whispering soft things, just enough for Orpheus to know she's still there. You step back onto land. The last stretch begins. The walls are fading now, turning to softer gray. Light, honest light. Not underworld shimmer starts to bleed in. You're almost there. That's when you hear it. Orpheus's breath hitching. His steps falter. You want to scream. Don't. Just keep walking. You're so close. But his fingers twitch. He hesitates. And then he turns. A small, broken, desperate glance. A fraction of a second. And you see her, Eurydice. She's beautiful and sad and glowing faintly like breath on cold glass. She smiles. Then she falls. No scream, no drama, just silence as her form collapses backward like a ribbon dropped in reverse. Swallowed again by the world she had almost left, Orpheus reaches for her. Too late. The underworld closes around her like a sigh. He's alone again. You don't breathe. Neither does he. The cave mouth opens, ahead sunlight on his face now, cruel and warm. He stands there, shattered, half of himself missing again. And somewhere behind you, 3-headed snoring resumes? You don't say anything. What could you say? Orpheus just stands there, 1 foot in the sun, the other still brushing the cold shadows of the underworld. He doesn't cry. That would almost be too easy. Instead, he looks like someone who forgot how to move, or breathe, or be made of anything other than regret. And honestly, fair. You step beside him. The wind on this side of the cave mouth feels too alive. Birds chirp. Somewhere in the distance, a shepherd yells at a goat. It's all offensively normal. Behind you, Eurydice is gone. Again, Orpheus takes 1 small, sharp step forward, fully into daylight, and then sits, just sits, in the dust, like a statue someone forgot to finish carving. And for the next few days you lose track. He doesn't speak, doesn't sing, barely eats. People come. People go. They try to console him. She's in a better place. The gods know what they're doing. At least you had the chance. Useless words. Instead, Orpheus wanders, not home, just away. You follow because someone has to. He walks through woods and olive groves, past temples with broken steps and markets full of fish and noise. But he doesn't stop. Not for food, not for shelter, just walks until the world feels too loud. Eventually, he finds a place. It's a cliffside over the sea. Nothing fancy, no shrine, just open air and salt wind. And finally, he plays 1 string at first, then another. Slowly, the music returns. But it's changed. Not sadder, just emptier. Like he's making space for something that won't come back. Historians say Orpheus invented new musical modes after Eurydice's death, haunting arrangements that echoed grief in a way no one had heard before. One such mode was so sorrowful that Plato himself warned it was unsuitable for strong men. Translation: too many feelings. A fisherman nearby stops to listen. A herd of goats pauses mid-chew. Even the waves seem to hush. You sit beside him. The sky dims. The stars blink out like hesitant witnesses. He sings again. This time, it's a story of a wedding. In a grove, of a snake in the grass, of a river that didn't forgive, of a backward glance that cost everything. And the story spreads. People begin to whisper of it. They hum his melodies in distant cities. Children repeat the part about don't look back like it's a bedtime warning. But Orpheus, he avoids them all. He starts refusing company, especially women. This, too, becomes myth. Some say he scorned love forever. Others say he simply couldn't bear to give anyone else his songs. A few fringe theories claim he tried to bring Eurydice back again, but only found her shadow in a puddle during a rainstorm, and wept for 3 days straight. You know the truth. He was tired of sound, of myth, of the weight of being the man who couldn't wait 5 more steps. He sings only to trees now, and rocks, and the sea, and maybe, if you listen closely, to the ghost of her footsteps behind him still walking, still waiting. Days pass, or maybe weeks. You're not sure anymore. Time has a habit of smudging at the edges when grief is in the air, like damp ink on a forgotten scroll. Orpheus no longer speaks to strangers, or friends, or you. He speaks only through his music, and only when he thinks no one is listening. The world begins to move around him without waiting. Harvests are brought in. Wars begin somewhere far off. Philosophers continue to argue about the shape of the soul and whether the moon has feelings. And Orpheus, he plays to stones. You sit with him one evening as he strums a minor chord that feels like the memory of a lost thought. A goat wanders up, lies down nearby, and stares at nothing. A shepherd passes by and mutters, "That's the man who lost his wife." Twice, word has gotten around. It's strange how a man who tried to defy death becomes famous not for his love, but for his failure. Some call him foolish, others brave. Some even say it was Eurydice's fault that she must have whispered his name too softly just before the exit and made him turn. Historians still argue whether the myth was ever about love at all, or if it was a parable about hubris, about mortals daring to rewrite endings that gods had already penned in ink, made from starlight and consequence. Either way, Orpheus is no longer a man. He's becoming a legend, and that is a lonely thing. The forest around you begins to whisper, not with wind, but with rumor. Women have begun to appear in the corners of the glade. They bring wine, songs, laughter. They dance around fires that weren't there the day before. Maenads, followers of Dionysus, god of wine, madness, and generally poor impulse control. They're drawn to music and to pain, especially the kind you can dance to. At first, Orpheus ignores them, keeps his head down, plays quietly to the moss, but they linger. Some try to talk to him, some flirt, some taunt, but he won't answer, won't look at them, won't break his vow. He has made himself a shrine of silence, and to the Maenads. Wild, chaotic, brimming with Dionysian fire that is an insult. One night, they get louder. Wine flows like rivers that forgot their direction. Screaming laughter echoes through the trees. The women spin and shout and chant his name over and over until it no longer sounds like a name at all, just a challenge. He plays louder to drown them out. They respond in kind with drums and clapping and stomping that feels like an earthquake made of hips. He closes his eyes. You feel it. Something is going to break. A pot of wine shatters nearby. One Maenad steps forward, face flushed with fury and something deeper, something hurt. "Why won't you see us?" she yells. Orpheus doesn't reply. So she grabs a stone and throws it. It doesn't hit him. Not at first. The music is too strong. The melody too pure. The stone veers away, but then another, and another, until one connects. His lyre falls with a terrible, sudden silence. You stand, scream, try to pull them away. Too many, too wild. They rush him like a storm of hands and teeth and righteous rage. You can't stop it. You barely escape it. And when the dust settles, when the trees fall quiet, when the wine turns sour, there's nothing left of him but the broken lyre. And his head, still singing. You find him by the riverbank, or what's left. The Maenads have vanished, gone like fever after a long night. No footprints, no echo, just scorched ground and a bitter smell of grapes and anger. But Orpheus's head lies gently at the edge of the water, nestled in reeds that seem too green, too soft, for the scene they frame. And somehow, impossibly, it's singing. Not loudly, not proudly, but like a music box tucked into a drawer, like a lullaby leaking out of a forgotten dream. His eyes are closed. His mouth barely moves. Yet the sound is unmistakable. The same old sorrow, remixed with ocean breeze and resignation. You kneel beside him. The lyre floats nearby, bobbing lazily along the current like it doesn't know it's supposed to be broken. And then the river takes him, softly, gently, as if the water itself has been waiting for this moment not with hunger, but with understanding. Orpheus drifts down the Hebrus River. They'll say, past fishing villages and weeping willows and cows that briefly pause mid-chew, as if catching a familiar melody. People gather. Some claim they hear his song carried in the breeze. Others swear fish swim differently when the melody reaches them slower, more thoughtful. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth is literal or symbolic. Was Orpheus's singing head a metaphor for legacy, for how a voice can live on even when the body fails? Or did some ancient bard just get carried away with poetic imagery and a very specific sense of drama? Fringe theory. The head wasn't singing at all, but the river remembered him. And rivers, in case you didn't know, have excellent taste in music. Eventually, the head washes ashore. The island of Lesbos welcomes it like a relic. Locals build a shrine. They say the wind itself changed afterward, always just slightly in tune. You arrive days later, not as a pilgrim, not even as a friend, just as the one who saw the whole thing and needs to sit down before the world rewrites it all into a prettier version. Lesbos is quiet, or maybe you're just numb. The locals lead you to the shrine. It's nothing grand, no marble, no gold, just a flat stone, a garland of ivy, and the lyre, now dried and humming faintly from time to time like it's trying to remember his hands. You sit and listen. No one speaks, not even the wind, but somewhere out there, you feel it. A rhythm, not Orpheus's anymore, yours. Because myths don't end, they ripple. His grief becomes music. His music becomes story. And his story becomes something school teachers summarize in 2 lines. Not knowing there were goats and heartbreak and a lot of extremely poor choices along the way. Later, people will say that Orpheus's soul was finally reunited with Eurydice in the underworld, that they wandered the fields of asphodel together, hands entwined, no backward glances needed. But that's not the part you remember. You remember the silence, the long walk, the promise not to look, and the way the gods always write conditions in fine print. It's been years. Or at least, that's what the villagers say when you return. The shrine on Lesbos is still there, weathered, overgrown, but intact. People leave offerings now, small stones, dried flowers, a coin or two tucked between cracks. No one dares move the lyre, even though it's nearly fused to the altar by time and reverence. You sit beside it again, just like before, but this time, you're not looking for music. You're listening for silence. Orpheus is everywhere now. He's in the way the wind changes before a storm, in the creak of ancient olive trees, in lullabies. Mothers hum without knowing where the tune came from. He's no longer a man. He's a consequence, a warning wrapped in melody. And yet, people keep telling his story wrong. Some say he was arrogant, others naive. Some skip straight to the Maenads and miss the part where he walked through the underworld on nothing but hope and heartbreak. Historians still debate whether Orpheus ever truly existed. No concrete evidence, no temple foundation stamped with his name, just words, songs, echoes. But here's something they don't tell you in museums. Echoes have teeth, and sometimes they bite back. You remember the river, how it swallowed him like it was finishing a thought. You remember Eurydice, not the brief ghost in the cave, but the woman who smiled as she vanished, as if forgiving him for being human. That smile haunts you more than the music ever did. You leave Lesbos with nothing in your hands, not even a pebble. But his story follows. One night, you find yourself in a fishing village far from Greece. They've never heard of Orpheus, but a boy on the dock plays a melody you swear you've heard before. His father says he made it up. You smile. You don't correct him. The myth is moving on, like music slipping under doors. In a Roman bathhouse centuries later, someone will etch a crude picture of a man with a lyre charming snakes. In a library in Alexandria, a faded papyrus will describe a bard whose grief stopped time. Even now, in your time, Orpheus makes cameos in operas, comic books, Spotify playlists, and bedtime stories like this one. Fringe theory. He knew this would happen, that to walk through death with nothing but a song meant becoming more than mortal. It was never about saving Eurydice. Not really. It was about making sure no one forgot her. You lie back on the grass outside the village. The stars look different here. Colder, more scattered. You hum a fragment of his final song, the part no one remembers, the one meant only for her, and the wind listens somewhere. A tree leans closer. You wander, not just across lands, but through time itself. Or at least it feels that way. Because Orpheus doesn't fade like other myths, he follows you in odd places. In hotel lobby music that sounds suspiciously like a funeral for a dream. In subway performers with cracked guitars and thousand-mile stares. In children singing nonsense songs that somehow resolve into tragic harmonies about looking back. He's everywhere and nowhere. A glitch in the system of forgetting. One day, you find yourself near Mount Olympus. No, not that Olympus, not the crisp, snow-capped, postcard-perfect peak. This one is a hill, a shrug of a mountain. But the locals insist it's sacred, say the gods used to picnic there. You climb it anyway, if only to feel what Orpheus might have felt when he stopped trying to be heard. It's quiet, too quiet. You lie down, arms behind your head, and whisper to the sky. Was it worth it? No reply. Unless you count the breeze that smells faintly of time and regret, you close your eyes. Then a sound. Not music. Worse. Philosophers. They've found you. A small group. Sandals squeaking. Robes swishing. Arguing about metaphysics and metaphor. One leans in. Do you think Orpheus actually changed the underworld? Or did the underworld change him? Another counters. Perhaps Eurydice was never meant to return. She was a lesson, not a person. A third mutters something about shadows in Plato's cave, and honestly, you start considering rolling down the hill just to escape. Historians still argue whether Orpheus's myth was originally a cautionary tale about emotion or a secret ritual narrative embedded in Orphic mystery cults, those strange, early Greek religious movements that promise soul purification through music and symbolic death. Fringe theory. Orpheus did bring Eurydice back, but what returned wasn't her, just a copy. A mimic, a memory made flesh, and that's why he looked back. Because he knew. You stop listening, not out of boredom, but protection. Some questions echo longer than answers. You head down the hill, brushing dust from your robe. A goat blocks your path. You stare at each other for a moment. The goat sneezes and trots off. Classic. At the bottom of the hill, there's a fig tree older than most cities. You sit beneath it. Someone left a flute in the branches. Carved, cracked, abandoned. You don't play it. You just hold it. Feel its silence. You remember the oracle's cave? The way she laughed before sending Orpheus to his doom. The smell of laurel smoke. Her exact words. You'll need more than music. She was right. But he tried anyway. And because he tried, people remember him. You run your fingers along the edge of the flute and whisper again. Was it worth it? Still no answer. But a crow caws in the distance. A sound not of approval or mockery, but timing. Punctuation. You look up. The sky's the color of a half-forgotten song. There's a market town a few days' walk from the fig tree. It smells like olives, fish, and poor decisions. You wander through stalls stacked with fabrics dyed in colors the sky forgot. A man tries to sell you a pebble he claims belonged to Medusa. A child offers you honey-smeared figs in exchange for a story. You tell her the short version. Orpheus loved someone so much, he went to get her back from the dead. She blinks. Did it work? You pause. He almost made it. The child frowns. Then, that's a bad story. You don't argue. You just hand her a fig and keep walking. The world is full of people who want a clean ending, but this story never had one. You pass a pottery vendor painting delicate red figure vases. One of them shows Orpheus' curly hair, long robe, lyre in hand surrounded by animals, all gazing at him like he's the sun and they're tired of chasing warmth. You ask the potter where he learned the image. Old stories. He shrugs. The usual. Love, loss, some singing. Tragic stuff sells better. You nod. In a side alley, you stumble across a man trying to sing to a cat. He's holding a lyre. It's out of tune. The cat is deeply unimpressed. Trying to be like Orpheus, you ask, He shrugs. Thought I'd start small. See if I could charm a tabby before attempting death gods. You both laugh. Sort of. You buy bread, dates, a small flute carved from olive wood. You don't need it. You just want to hold something fragile that makes sound when asked nicely. That night, you sleep on the edge of town, stars above you, the distant sound of waves repeating the same sentence over and over in a language only tide pools understand. You dream, not of Orpheus, but of Eurydice. This time, she's walking through the underworld alone. No lyre, no footsteps behind her, just her moving forward. She doesn't look back, doesn't hesitate. Her face is calm, not joyful, not mournful, just peaceful. Historians don't record this part, but maybe they should have. Maybe the real story isn't about Orpheus bringing her out, but about her finding her way back on her own. Quietly, later, without song or ceremony, you wake with the sunrise curling around your fingers like golden thread. The wind smells like laurel again. The flute you bought hums faintly in the morning breeze. You don't remember playing it. You follow the wind, not metaphorically like actually. It slips between trees, curls around cliffs, tugs at your sleeve with a persistence usually reserved for bored toddlers or prophecies. So you walk, because what else can you do? The path grows unfamiliar. Hills roll like shrugged shoulders. Cypress trees lean toward you as if listening in on a story you haven't started telling yet. Eventually, you reach a small, crumbling amphitheater, half swallowed by vines. A single column stands upright like it just barely passed inspection. No audience, no stagehands, just time, eroding things with style. But someone's been here. A lyre string dangles from a fig branch nearby, smooth, taut, strangely clean. You pluck it lightly. It hums in a key you don't recognize. There's a stone bench near the edge. You sit and begin to think about how Orpheus wasn't the first person to try cheating death, but he might have been the first to do it with poetry instead of violence. Ancient kings tried conquering the underworld with swords. Orpheus, he brought a song, and maybe that's why people remember him more than them. Historians still debate whether the Orphic cults, those secret societies that sprang up later, actually followed any teachings from Orpheus himself. Most of their surviving texts are fragments, written in gold leaf and buried with the dead. Some describe purification rituals involving music and silence. Others claim the soul's journey depends on whether you remembered the right song when dying. Fringe theory. The "do not look back" rule wasn't a warning, it was a map, a test of pure trust, or a ritual gesture meant to separate the realms completely. Turn back, and you stitch death into life again. Leave with only memory, and you remain whole. You look out over the ruins. It's silent, but not empty, because this is where his music lives now, in ruins, in gaps, in the breath between one note and the next. You pull the olive wood flute from your pack, just to try. No expectations, no crowd. The first note is shy, like it's checking the weather. The second settles into the stones. The third, that one brings a breeze, a real one. The cypress trees begin to sway gently. A few leaves spiral down in a way that feels choreographed. Something is listening. You close your eyes and play what you remember. Not perfectly, not beautifully, just honestly. And for a moment, the amphitheater fills with something like applause, but not sound. More like permission or peace. You stop, and you feel lighter, not happy, but less haunted. The wind dies down. You stand and head east, because there's something waiting. Not someone, something. You just don't know what yet. But the road forward hums like a lyre string, and you trust it. The road leads you to the coast. Not the cheerful, postcard coast with umbrellas and overpriced olives. This one is jagged, wind-worn, salt-bitten. It feels like the edge of a story. Or maybe the place where stories go to retire. You reach a cliff at dusk. Below, waves break against rocks with the slow violence of memory. Above, seagulls argue like old philosophers who've run out of wine. And on the highest ridge, a figure, alone. You climb. The figure is tall, cloaked, standing by a cairn of stones shaped like a forgotten altar. They don't turn when you approach, just speak, low and gravelly. You followed the song. You blink, not his song. They clarify. Yours, you don't know what that means, but you don't interrupt. They pull back their hood. An old woman, wrinkled like parchment left in sun and wind, eyes like the sea before a storm. I knew him, she says. You don't need to ask who. He played here once, before he tried to bring her back. When he still thought music could prevent bad things, you sit on a stone nearby. He was wrong. You ask? She shrugs. He was early. You both stare out at the sea for a while. Then she points to the horizon. They're still out there. You know, the ones who carry their own grief like it's a sacred instrument, trying to find someone, or forget someone, or both. You nod. The woman sighs. He should have taught more people, shared the songs. Instead, he kept them for her. A pause. And now they echo through the wrong mouths. You look down. The flute is still in your hand. You pass it to her. She examines it, weighs it, then begins to play. It's not Orpheus's music. It's Eurydice's. Soft, subtle, woven with stillness. It doesn't demand your attention. It waits until you're ready. The melody drifts down the cliff, into the sea. The waves pause. Even the gulls stop mid-bicker. You close your eyes, and in the dark behind your lids, you see her, not as a ghost, not as a memory, as a woman walking barefoot across warm stone, unbothered, unchained. Historians don't tell this part, because history is loud, and this part is quiet. Fringe theory. Eurydice made her own path out of the underworld, took the long way, walked backward, forward, sideways until she stopped being a myth and became a whisper in the wind that plays through empty theaters. The old woman finishes the song, hands you back the flute. You feel different, lighter, like you've been carrying someone else's grief for too long. You stand, she smiles, and vanishes, like a good note fading into the sea breeze. You don't speak for a while. There's no need. The sea does all the talking, muttering against the rocks like it's working through old arguments with the moon. The flute stays warm in your hand, lighter, somehow, as if it remembers being played by someone who understood the silence between notes better than the sound itself. You descend the cliff path slowly. Somewhere between dusk and full night, you reach a tiny harbor town. A handful of lanterns flicker along the shoreline, casting gold ripples over water that doesn't quite sit still. There's a man there, hunched over a stool, repairing a net. He hums softly to himself. You pause when you hear the tune. It's not Orpheus's song, not exactly, but it's close. You sit across from him, no greeting, just a nod. His hands keep working quick, practiced, full of small, useful movements. You hum the next line of the melody without thinking. He looks up, smiles faintly. My grandmother used to hum that. He said it came from a place where grief learned to sing. You both fall silent again. Behind you, someone plays a reed pipe, badly. A dog barks once, a fishing boat creaks, and still the music persists, not from any single source. It just lingers, like salt in the air. Historians still argue whether myths ever end. Some say they ossify into parables. Others insist they evolve each telling, bending the meaning like light through water. Fringe theory. Every time someone retells a myth, it splits the world. A little makes room for another version, another truth. Tonight, you feel the edges of that, like the wind might change if you chose different words. You spend the night in a room above a tavern where the pillows smell like time and history. Sleep comes slowly. Then, all at once, thick and deep, you dream again. This time, not of Orpheus, not of Eurydice, but of a boy, alone in a meadow, stringing a lyre with horsehair, practicing a melody no one else knows yet. He hums to himself, smiles, and the grass bends toward the sound, like it's heard a prophecy. In the distance, shadows gather, not threatening, but listening. The boy plays, and even in sleep, you recognize the cadence. It's not a song about death. It's a song about returning. You wake before dawn. The sky is bruised blue, soft with promise. You walk to the water, flute in hand, and play not Orpheus's song, not Eurydice's, but your own. Something stitched from memory and mistake, hope and hush. And when you finish, the sea is still. You hear someone behind you whisper, "He didn't fail." You know, you turn. No one there. Just footprints in the sand that stop mid-stride. You walk inland as the sun rises. The road is soft underfoot, pine needles and dust mixing into a scent that could almost pass for peace. Birds stir in the branches above, stretching wings and gossiping in short, chirping bursts. You nod to a passing donkey. It seems wise. There's no destination, really, just movement. Forward, always forward. You've long since given up the idea of answers, but echoes you can live with. Eventually, you come to a meadow full of tall grass and lazily humming insects, and right there, half hidden by thistles and thyme, you find it. A marker, not a monument, not a tomb, just a flat stone with 7 grooves carved into it, like the strings of a lyre. You kneel. It's cool beneath your fingers, moss creeping up the edges like it's trying to keep a secret. You place the flute beside it. No ceremony, no grand farewell, just the quiet gesture of letting go. It feels right. Orpheus isn't here. Not really. But the story is, and it always was. You sit beside the stone and close your eyes, not to sleep, just to listen. And in that stillness, you hear everything. The sound of a woman walking through darkness, the note that made Cerberus blink twice and lie down, the silence between 2 people at the edge of death, the snap of a backward glance, the ripple of a song across a river, the shatter of a voice turned legend, the quiet that followed. And the wind, always the wind, threading it all together like a stitch between worlds. You stay there a long while, until the day shifts, until your breath slows, until the world around you begins to soften into dusk. The grass rustles, the breeze returns. You don't look back. You don't need to, because this story, like all good ones, never really ends. It just fades, like music, into memory. And now, you let your body grow heavy. Let the last traces of Orpheus's melody dissolve like mist at the edge of sleep. There is nothing more to do tonight. No more underworlds to cross, no strings to pluck, no footsteps to follow or regret. Just you, breathing. Let your jaw soften. Let your shoulders release. Let your thoughts drift like leaves in slow water. You've traveled far through grief, through love, through silence and song. And maybe what you found wasn't a neat ending, but something quieter. A space, a pause, a feeling of finally letting go of the weight you didn't realize you were still carrying. Feel that lightness settle in your chest, the hush of your own heartbeat, the quiet rhythm of breath, in and out. Steady as tide, you're safe now. The story has done its work. There's nothing else behind you, nothing calling out. Only the night, and the stillness, and a kind of knowing that hums just under the skin like a memory of a song you once loved. Let it hold you. Let it cradle you, note by note, until even the silence begins to fade. Sleep. Now, the lyre has stopped playing. The voices have quieted. And somewhere very far away, a stone stays warm in the sun, unmoved, unbroken, still listening.